Hello, and welcome to the Biological Resources Information Program for construction on State Highway in Riverside County near Lake Elsinore from Orange County Line to Monte Vista Street project. This training has 4 broad objectives. Hopefully, by the end of this presentation, you'll be familiar with all 4 of these points. First, we're going to cover the definition and implications of take. Then we'll move on to what your responsibilities are if you encounter a regulated species. We'll have a brief introduction to the protected species associated with this project, and then we'll go over some general mitigation measures that need to be followed in order to prevent any incidents of take. We'd like to emphasize that this training is meant to supplement, not replace the training information handouts that you should have received before watching this video. If you have not received a training pamphlet or booklet, please request one from your supervisor or on-site alluvian biologist. Let's start by discussing take. Take is a broadly defined term. Under the Federal Endangered Species Act, take means to harass, harm, pursue, hunt, shoot, wound, kill, trap, capture, or collect, or to attempt to engage in any such conduct. Penalties for take will vary from species to species. However, any individual found to be committing unsanctioned take may be dealt hefty fines and in some cases up to a year in jail time. These penalties are assessed for each instance of unsanctioned take. The California Endangered Species Act has similar civil and criminal penalties on state-listed species. These penalties can be up to $5,000 to $10,000 and/or a year in jail time. There are additional regulations and penalties that also pertain to the take of a protected species, including the Migratory Bird Treaty Act and the California Fish and Game Code sections 3503, 3503.5, and 3513. Again, penalties for violating these regulations includes fines and/or jail time. So what should you do if you encounter a regulated species on the project? The very first thing you should do is ensure that you do not touch or approach the animal. You should then immediately suspend work within the area the animal was found, especially if this work would result in take. Your next step is to notify your supervisor or the on-site biologist. If a biologist is not on site, please contact Gennaro Lockhart at the number listed on this slide and in your training materials. Unless otherwise noted in your training materials, a 100-foot no-work buffer will need to be established around the species of concern until it either moves off the project site of its own volition or until permission is received from the regulatory agencies to reduce or eliminate the no-work buffer. The next few slides will give you a brief overview of the listed species that occur on this project site. Southwestern willow flycatcher is a small flycatcher measuring 5 to 6 inches in length. Plumage is usually olive green with 2 white wing bars on each side of their body. This species is difficult to distinguish from other co-occurring flycatcher species, but is differentiated by its distinct Fitzhugh call and its close association with willow habitats. It is primarily found close to water bodies at high elevations throughout Southern California. Breeding takes place in late spring and early summer. Nests are built about 2 to 5 feet above ground in low brush or scrub within willow habitat. Females incubate a clutch of up to 4 eggs for 12 to 13 days. Young fledge about 13 to 14 days after. The ARROYO toad is a small warty-skinned toad measuring between 2 to 3 inches in length. Individuals vary in color from olive to gray to brown, with darker spots across the dorsal surface. This species may exhibit similar patterning with the co-occurring California toad, but can be distinguished by its lack of a dorsolateral stripe. ARROYO toad often bear a light-colored V-shaped strip atop their head and eyelids. ARROYO toad can be found throughout desert drainages in central and southern California, as well as Baja, Mexico. They require exposed sandy streamsides with stable terraces for burrowing, with scattered vegetation for shelter, and areas of quiet water or pools free of predatory fishes with sandy or gravel bottoms without silt for breeding. Breeding occurs from March to July, depending on rainfall and other environmental conditions. Females lay long strands containing between approximately 4,000 to 5,000 eggs. Least Bell's VIREO is a small songbird measuring 4 to 5 inches in length. This species is drably colored with few distinct markings, but may be identified by its characteristically rapid warbling vocalizations. This subspecies of Bell's VIREO is endemic to Southern California and northern Mexico. It can be found in riparian habitat, preferring areas with willow and low dense vegetation. Breeding begins in late spring and early summer. Nests are placed in trees and shrubs and are constructed of a combination of plant fibers and spiderweb silk. Clutches of 3 to 5 eggs are incubated for a period of 14 days, and nestlings typically fledge after 11 to 12 days. Many of the habitats and structures, particularly bridges associated with Caltrans right-of-ways, have been found to be inhabited by bats. A total of 18 species of bats have been found to use bridges in California in one way or another. Roosts are places that provide security and protection where bats can rest, sleep, hibernate, mate, socialize, or feed. In general, roosts are categorized into two distinct types, focused around the time of day when the roost is used: day roosts and night roosts. However, a particular roost may serve multiple functions. Roosts can take many forms and may be found in rock crevices, gaps in concrete or steel structures, trees, bridge weep holes, culverts, and many others. Bats prefer roosts that are in close proximity to open foraging grounds. ENCINITAS BACCHARIS is a low-water tolerant, broom-like shrub endemic to California. The plant rarely reaches more than 2 meters in height and bears small, white, tuft-like flowers. Its range is limited to chaparral habitat in southwestern California. The bloom period ranges from August to November. San Miguel savory is a low-water tolerant perennial shrub and may reach a height of half a meter. They bear small bell-shaped white to lavender flowers. It is endemic to chaparral habitats in California and Mexico and can be found primarily on rocky slopes. The bloom period ranges from March through July. Slender-horned spineflower is a drought-tolerant annual herb. The plant rarely reaches more than 3 inches in height and bears small clusters of white to pink flowers. It is endemic to several scrub habitats in southwestern California and prefers sandy or gravel substrates, often in seasonal floodplains. Plants usually occur in isolated patches. The bloom period ranges from April to June. A variety of bird species have been found nesting in or immediately adjacent to Caltrans right-of-ways. Nest sites are often placed in crevices, cavities, seams, or weep holes within bridges. Other nests are constructed in open vertical cement surfaces on bridges. The species that utilize man-made structures as nest sites tend to be more tolerant of urban conditions, but can nonetheless be sufficiently disturbed during construction or maintenance activities to cause nest abandonment or inattentiveness, resulting in the death or loss of eggs or juveniles. Incubation and brood rearing require approximately 4 to 5 weeks for smaller birds, but can take up to 12 weeks for larger birds. American bullfrog is North America's largest native frog species. Adults measure between 4 to 8 inches in length and have smooth, green, olive-brown skin. Aside from their large size, individuals from the species can be distinguished from other co-occurring frogs by the absence of dorsolateral folds and the presence of a prominent tympanic membrane behind each eye. American bullfrog are highly aquatic and are seldom found far from water. American bullfrog are native to the eastern United States. However, they have been introduced and have proliferated widely throughout the western United States. This species is now found throughout California in almost every habitat that supports permanent water bodies. Bullfrog females may lay up to 2 clutches of eggs per year. Eggs are deposited in sheets of 20,000 in water. Spanish broom is a non-native invasive low-water tolerant shrub in California. Broadly, this species is native to the Mediterranean region of southern Europe and northern Africa. Spanish broom can reach approximately 3 meters in height. They bear many yellow flowers and produce copious quantities of seed pods. This species can be found in several disturbed habitats in Southern California and is especially prevalent in roadside vegetation communities. The bloom ranges from June through August. Now we'll go over some additional key species protection measures for this project. These slides won't comprise an exhaustive list of necessary protective measures, but they should provide you with a good idea of what's expected. Please refer to your training booklet for a comprehensive list of species protection measures. There are several general protective measures that need to be followed on this project. I'll go over these quickly, but you should review these measures in your training materials. First of all wildlife should be allowed to pass through the project footprint unharmed. This includes any animals that don't carry state or federal protections. More than one ESA exists on the project site for the ARROYO toad and archaeological resources, each with individual management measures that should be followed and marked. Follow protocol for disposing of hazardous waste generated on the project site. Do not stockpile material containing hazardous waste or contamination unless authorized in your excavation and transportation plan. Stockpiles containing hazardous waste or contamination must not be placed where affected by surface run-on or runoff. Do not place stockpiles in ESAs and ensure that they are covered. Lastly, avoid and minimize adverse impacts to waters of the U.S. and/or state to the maximum extent practicable. while ensuring to restore areas of temporary disturbance which could result in discharge to the waters of the United States. If we find active nests within project limits, we'll need to set up a protective no-work buffer until it can be demonstrated that chicks have fledged and the site is no longer active. A 300-foot buffer will be required for nesting passerines and a 500-foot buffer for nesting raptors. All remaining regulated species listed and mentioned in previous slides will require a 100-foot no-work buffer if discovered on the project site. We'll finish up here with some important takeaways from this presentation. Perhaps the most important takeaway is remembering what your responsibilities are if you see a regulated species within the project site. Don't touch or approach regulated wildlife and immediately report encounters to your supervisor or the on-site biologist. Keep your training materials somewhere you can readily access them. If an animal wanders onto the construction site and you're unsure whether it's cause for concern, your booklets contain the necessary contact information and procedures to follow in order to protect yourself and your company. It's important to remember that you and your company are wholly responsible for the following measures in this training video and its associated training materials, as well as the permits and specifications for this project. So please revisit this video and your training materials as needed. This concludes the Biological Resources Information Training video. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions about what's been covered in this presentation or your training materials, please direct them to your on-site alluvian biologist.